there's nothing missing in my life, and it's like a way of honoring all this, not my life cannot just go such a way. I want more females to run with me, and I feel like stop being scared, I think, because I see a lot of people, like, obviously when the first thing they say when they see you, like, oh my god, I would never be able to do that, oh my god, that's amazing. That was the hardest thing I've ever done in my entire life. I broke so many times. Actually, when I finished, I think I couldn't stop crying for.
Tania, thanks very much for joining us today in the podcast.
Thank you.
How are you feeling?
Good, right? Good.
Get here in time.
Busy, I know. I'm trying to. I drove here in the UK, obviously, but I'm trying to get better. Still have kind of grasping the driving here. I've did a couple, like those roundabouts. Still getting me every time. So I did a couple of bad roundabouts and been running. That's why I always head up a bit earlier, because I know I'm going to mess up at least one roundabout.
Quite right. Before we go into the podcast and obviously tell the listener about your plans to actually literally run the world, the listeners would have already picked up on the fact that your accent has got a wee Scottish twang in there. But where are you from? Where did you come from? And tell us a bit about yourself. Yeah,
I'm from Mexico. Born and raised in Mexico, and I moved here 5 years ago when I got married. My husband's from here, from Glasgow, Glasgow region, and that's how I moved here, and that's why I'm here.
So how did you meet? Was it in Mexico?
He was going, he was traveling through Mexico with just some friends, and that's how we met.
I think most people would want to make the move the other way as opposed to...
We tried. He tried, actually. Yeah, he tried for a couple of months, but it was difficult for him. He's never, I think, lived that abroad, and the language was different for him. Was difficult for him because he didn't speak a lot of Spanish. He's getting better, but at that time he was not speaking any Spanish, and in Mexico City it was really difficult. You do need to drive there because otherwise transport is not as easy. So even though he tried, he lived there for like 6 months. He was like, he couldn't go out because he couldn't be self-sufficient. So he was like, I don't think I can do this. So I was like, okay, so I guess it will have to be me.
So tell me a bit about Mexico. Tell me a bit about your life in Mexico before obviously you met your husband. How is it, just out of interest culturally, the difference between here and there, obviously, and just what your life was like?
My life was amazing. I've had a really good childhood. I had a really close family. I cannot say that all Mexican families are like that. I can just speak about from my family, but I have a really close family. So my parents, I have a brother. I have my 2 grandmas. I had them at that time. Now they're not here anymore, but they were here. And a lot of family, probably not as big as a normal Mexican family, but my parents' brothers and sisters and all that. So it was very normal, happy childhood I lived. I lived in a medium, income family. We had... There you do have to go to a private school as a difference in here. So I went all my life to private schools. It's a little bit more normal than here it is. Yeah. So I went to a private school because that's pretty much where everyone goes. And then I studied university there as well. I have a degree. And then I decided to do my master's. And then that's when I started moving abroad. Well, actually, I moved abroad before. I studied my last year of high school in Canada. I think since I was little, I got the traveling bug. I was like, I need to leave, somewhere else. I think that's where my adventurous mind was like, I need some challenges, not to
stay in one place.
Yeah, just not and figure it out. So I think since I was a teen, pretty much, I left home. I went to live with a family in Canada, and I finished my high school up there. Then I came back, and that's when I finished college here in Mexico.
Good.
And then I went out again to study my master's degree in Chicago. So I've been always, from childhood
all these places you decide to settle in Glasgow.
And then I decided to move here, which now we're deciding to move around as well. So
There's more travel.
It's in the plans, definitely. Good. Yes.
And moving on more so to your current occupation and lifestyle now, was that the case in Mexico? Were you into your fitness and running and your coaching? Is that what you did over there, or has that just been a new thing since you came to Scotland?
It's a new thing. I wasn't, well, like I said, when I was in Mexico, I finished my university, so I wasn't working at that time. I was just studying. And when I lived in Chicago, I worked part-time. I was studying management. So, you know, just part-time. I knew I wasn't going to stay there. I was just there for studying. And then when I moved back to Mexico, when I was kind of like helping my parents with their, you know, with their business, and just while I was sorting or thinking what I wanted to do in my life, and that's when Andy showed up. So I didn't have a lot of time to kind of
carve out a career.
Yeah, exactly. And then I met him, and it was a lot of traveling back and forth because obviously we started, you know, seeing each other. Yeah. So I was traveling here. I was staying here 6 months and then going to Mexico 6 months. So I was living on and off for like 3 years when we were dating, sort of thing, long distance. Yeah. So I couldn't really work either, but it was fine because in Mexico I think it's not common anymore, but in that time it was that you can live with your parents until you're pretty much. Yeah, it's pretty much. And like I said, I just moved back from Chicago, so I didn't have like an apartment yet, or I was like in that, you know, I was starting to build up my life when Andy came along. So I didn't have time really to, you know, put my feet in the ground when I met him, and I was like, I decided to move back and forth.
So when you came to Glasgow, what was it that inspired, who inspired you, or what inspired you to get into running, or was it just a way of getting out and about to see the new country that you now lived in?
Yeah, so when I lived in Chicago, I started running a little bit, but it was horrible because I think since I lived in Chicago, I realized that it was a way to meet people. It was a sort of, you know, easy way because I lived in Chicago and didn't know anyone, obviously. And then Chicago Marathon is such a big thing there. And there's millions of groups that get together and, you know, organize training runs and stuff to work towards the marathon. And when I was there, I did the marathon, finished it. It was, oh my God, it was the worst experience ever. And I decided I was not going to run ever again. And I never ran again for like 3 or 4 years. Really? I stopped. It was so bad. So when I came back to Mexico, I started running again. And what was the question?
It was, what inspired you getting running over here?
Oh yeah. So I moved here to, sorry.
Are we off on a tangent there?
So I moved here to, well, it was a little bit in Mexico when I started running in Mexico. Same, because I moved back to Mexico. I didn't know anyone again. So I realized, you know I hate running, but there was this group of people running around my block. And I thought, you know, and you're in that age and you're not in uni. Yeah. I wasn't working in a big company. So I was just like, maybe
you need to make a conscious effort to try and join in.
Maybe I can meet some people, even though I hate running, you know. So I went in there, joined this group. It was horrible again. They were just running the street, and I couldn't even do like 3K or 2K or whatever the loop was. I think it was a 5K. It was absolutely horrible. But anyway, because of them, they started, Spartan race was starting in Mexico at that time. Okay. It was very big and it looked fun. So I said, you know what? Why not? Everyone was like, why not sign up for that Spartan? And I was like, okay, cool, let's sign up. It looks fun. And they were like, there's this pair of trainers that are going to do a workshop about how to train or how to do this Spartan races. And I was like, okay. So I went to the workshop. There was these amazing trainers, and I started working with them. I did the Spartan race, which was in trails. You know how they like you run a little bit and then you do the obstacle. Yeah. And then when I finished, it was a 15K. But when I finished the race, there was like these bits of trail that you had to run, obviously. And that was the ping moment. I was actually thinking about that this morning because I was like, I can remember the moment that I was like, this is what I want to do.
So it was a difference between kind of like road running and being out in the trail.
Absolutely. And I can remember like the trail where I was, where like there was like branches and I had to like lean over and it was like mud, and I could remember the moment I was like, I am having so much fun doing this.
I think you're right. I've experienced that as well, and I'm by no means a runner. I feel every single step that I take, but more so on concrete or pavement. But I think when you're running in trails and you've got like the trees to contend with, the roots, branches, just the different terrain all the time, the ups and the downs, you're concentrating so much on what's round about you as opposed to just watching each leg pound off the pavement.
Yeah.
I think that's what
There's a little bit more to think about.
Totally. There's more stimulation there if you switch off. And
I do not love running, even until today. I know you're going to laugh, but I'm not a runner. I'm not a runner. I think I just like the challenges that come with it, but I don't really I wouldn't consider myself a runner 100%. I know, far from it.
But let's talk about some of the things that you've done, because the listeners will hear you saying you're not a runner, you don't like running, but you've run 100-mile ultramarathons.
Yeah.
And you're doing 5 next year. Is that your plan?
Yeah, that's the plan.
So how can you say that you don't enjoy running? Do you just enjoy the pain?
I enjoy the challenge that brings these races, and I think that's why I like the trail and an ultra trail, because those kind of races bring a lot of challenges. It's problem solving. It's like a big puzzle, and I love solving puzzles, right? You're putting yourself in this maze, and you don't know what's going to happen. It's an amazing game. I love it.
Must be easier puzzles to try and solve than 100.
You know what? You start with tiny puzzles, and controlled. My first race was a 50K. It had a little bit of elevation, but it was very well marked. Yeah. So it was okay, it's controlled. And then I was okay, I'm going to do a 50 miler. And then when I moved here, I did, for example, the Cheviots, which was in the middle of winter in the Cheviots, absolute pitch black, the whole route. Really? And self-navigation.
Where was that? Sorry?
The Cheviots is the Cheviot goat. It's from Montana. It's a race in the middle of the Cheviot. And it's in the middle of winter. It's because it's pitch black pretty much all the time, because it's in the middle of winter. And it's self-navigated, and it's so cold. So it's you start adding challenges, okay, maybe 50 miles doesn't bother me anymore. So let's add the challenge of self-navigation and extreme condition, So, okay, let's see how you solve this, Tania. So I love that.
Where does that desire to kind of meet these challenges head on come from? What's made you into this person that wants to take on really, really difficult challenges alone? Although there's other races, you run alone in the majority of them.
Yeah.
Is there anything that's happened, or is there anything that's made you want to put yourself through such extreme endurance events?
I think it's a way of being grateful. It's my way of saying, I'm so grateful for being so blessed in life. I have my health. I have, everything. Yeah. Pretty much.
No, I don't
have any, I don't lack anything. Yeah. I have a very supportive family. I have, there's nothing missing in my life. And it's a way of honoring all this, my life cannot just go such a waste and just living,
So because you have a healthy mind and healthy body, you basically want to push it to its limits, really test it.
Exactly.
Instead of just going about day-to-day business and not really stimulating anything or not really challenging yourself.
Exactly. No, and I think both things feed each other, because obviously I'm also an entrepreneur and also do, apart from coaching, I have my own business. Right. So I think the two feed each other. So I think that because of these challenges and puzzles that I put myself into, I'm better when I'm doing, for example, investments and stuff. Yeah. I can, it feels I've been more adventurous, because now I have that grasp or that, that mindset.
You're used to taking some sort of risk, or even though it's from a physical risk to a business or mental risk.
Yeah.
It's still.
Or when everything is going down, hill, you're hold on, I've done harder things. And then the other way, when I'm in a race, I'm oh my God, I'm really, you've gone through harder stuff, not family ways or family, myself, but business wise or something, you've been you've
been in worse positions.
Yeah, before. Exactly. Yeah, so both are good complements.
So what motivates you in the morning? And you get up and tell us how if you're training for one of your long distance ultra marathons, for example, your most recent one was the Jordan.
Jordan, yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So that was, tell the listener what that was, because they might not understand the terrain, the temperature, the distance, the fact that it was multi-day, and how many days.
So the Jordan one was my first stage race.
Okay.
I wanted to try again. One of the other things to test myself, or my body even, because sometimes you don't know how your body is going to react, how you're going to solve those issues. So this one was a 5-day. It's 220 kilometers through the desert, which was the Wadi Rum desert. So obviously extreme conditions, really, really hot. And you do I say tiny distances, but it's a shorter distance. It's like 30K every day. And there's 1 day of 60. Okay. And then in this one, you were not carrying all your kit. So your kit will stay in camp. You go out and come back to the camp. You carry only your water, obviously, the things that you need to eat through the route, but it wasn't like self-supported.
So does the camp remain in the same place?
The camp remains in the same place, and then you just do like different loops. I think they changed it once, but they take all your stuff. So it's kind of like quite nice. It was a good introduction into stage racing and what this, extreme conditions in sand and, heat can bring. Course, so that's sort of what makes me wake up and train for these things. To be honest, I am such a lazy person as well.
you can't.
I need a carrot in front. Otherwise, I would be in the couch all day. Like, I'm not one of those like athletes. I'm like, go hard, everything. I'm like, nope. I need a carrot in front. If I'm not signing up for something, if I don't feel tested, I think I would lose interest really fast, like really, really fast.
So you need a goal to aim for?
I do. Like, once I finish a season, for example, this last year was the 100-miler and Jordan. When I finished Jordan, I feel like the blues of like, it's gone. Like, my year is gone. Like, what am I going to do? Yeah. Like, I can't be with nothing in my head. And even before Jordan started, I already had cooking something in the bag. Like, that's how my head works. So I know when this is over, I pass through these, no dark moments, but it's like the moment where I don't have anything planned. And I just can't. I just really struggle to go out and work out for no reason. Like, I know it's bad, but, I'm just... just a lazy person inside me.
It's funny because like my image, and I hope you don't mind me saying it's a compliment if anything, that most ultramarathon runners, whether male or female, they're of a certain build, they're small, they're slight, they're very little kind of muscle tone or body fat, but you're big in your strength and conditioning and your gym work and stuff as well. You have a more muscular build than most other male and female runners out there. Do you think is that because you just enjoy that type of training, or is it do you think that makes you a better runner, or do you think it prevents injury, or is it just, do you think that complements ultramarathon running?
Yeah, I've heard that a lot and being asked a lot, but I think because I'm going to go back into, I'm not only a runner, I'm an endurance athlete. And then if you want to be an endurance athlete, you have to build a body that can endure. So that has to be a strong build to endure, rough terrain. It has to, crazy conditions, really harsh conditions, heat or cold. So you have to be a bit more equipped with more muscle, if that's so ever. So that's why and plus is, to be honest, that the strength is just better if you want to be a long life runner, or it's just for living a long healthy life. In when the running stops, you need to be strong anyway. So even if I don't run, I think I would strength train. I do enjoy more strength training than running, if you ask me. So my preseason, like right now, I'm really heavy in lifting, and then that will transition a little bit into running when I walk into my season to get ready for whatever it's coming in that year.
No, that's interesting. It's just when you see so many, and I know a few, and they all try and concentrate on getting their body weight to as light as possible without affecting their performance, because obviously the lighter they are, the less body weight they have to carry. But I'm starting to see both in male and females more kind of athletic builds, muscular
I was
builds,
going to say, I think that what you were saying is like very old school. Yeah. And now it's they are starting to understand like, oh, we do have to do strength training as well. So this new era or this new mindset or this new, like, they are starting to add, training with weights and lifting really heavy, which I love, because when I started 7 years ago, I heard that a lot from even from running peers or friends, like, oh, well, you need to lose weight, or like, plus also you have to be happy with,
exactly. You need to enjoy.
I need to enjoy it. Like running. If I'm gonna be super skinny and like feeling sick, and I'm not even going to be able to perform because I feel so, weak or hungry all the time or cranky, like that's not the life I want to live. So always the first question is like, if I can see doing this for the rest of my life, it's a yes. If not, I'm just passing it. So I'm not doing that. So like that is like, obviously I do try to cut, and then I'm doing certain, following certain meal plans, of course, but nothing that is limited, nothing that is restrictive, because that's not how I want to live my life anyways.
Like running is just a small part of
exactly. Running is just a small part, because I want to carry, like, this is, my life. It's not only running, so same thing with it. Weight training, like I would do the weight training anyways, regardless, because that's just healthy, and you have to have a strong body to live. Like life itself, it's the best endurance race of all times. We're all here, enduring, so you have to have a strong, healthy,
strong body. Well. It's amazing how much female sport has came along. I'm interested. You ever heard of Catherine Switzer?
No, Catherine, no.
So just when you mentioned the Chicago Marathon there, my mind went, and it was actually the Boston Marathon. So she was the first female.
Oh yeah, okay. Run it. I know. But I've seen the picture, obviously, but I can't remember the name. Yeah.
So for the listeners that don't, it was Catherine Switzer. I'm not sure her nationality, but I think it was like in late 1960s, and it was a Boston Marathon, and she turned up and thought, I'm going to run the Boston Marathon. Everyone was
like, oh my God, your uterus is going to fall.
You're going to be, you're the first female here. But there's actually pictures while she's running, and men are, fellow runners, not people that are in the crowd, men are dragging her off.
So that was, I don't know what year was that.
I think it was 67.
But if you think about, because I was listening to I listen to a lot of podcasts, and obviously, they were saying that was, I don't know what year, but to now it's like 20 or 30 years or so. Like it's quite recent in history that women sort of started running, obviously compared to the men.
Oh, of course.
So we're new to the sport, really. And then obviously even more or newer to ultra running, which is obviously a little bit... In our race, in the races, is usually even less than 10% of women out there, which is like shocking. The races that I go to, I know there's, depends in the country. I think in the States it's almost not a half, but it's definitely growing a bit more. But the ones in here in the UK I've been, it's been, it's a bit less than 10%, and it's just shocking because we're so good at endurance. Like women, we are actually made for this.
So why do you think it's just not, not that it's not as acceptable as kind of other forms of sport or maybe just marathons, but do you think there's maybe a lack of kind of role models there, a lack of like information for females that want to go into ultra marathon?
I think there's a couple of things, but in itself, women are made to excel in these races. I think the longer actually the race, there is a couple of races that excel 200 miles or plus, and the women wins overall. Wins even over men, and it's pretty common. So you see there that we are actually better in taking care of yourself, which is key part of, that's what it is, pretty much ultra running. You just have to be taking care of yourself, knowing yourself, and just kind of like pacing, which men are a little bit more testosteronal, I'm going to go run all in and just forget about the pace, and women, we're a little bit more cautious. We can think ahead a little bit more. We're planners. We're, so that's why we could excel a little bit more in this, obviously, and also genetically we're good to endure this kind of distances and races. Why they haven't, why there's no more than that, than maybe 10% taken. I think there's a couple of organizations trying to boost this. Actually, there's one that is in the UK. It's called She Races, and they are trying to talk to organizers and make women a little bit more inclusive, like start, I don't know, maybe making the checkpoints or the cut-offs a little bit bigger, or like a little bit more flexible, maybe, because that's the first thing, the first thing I look at.
Always the same for
it's the
male
same
and
as
female.
men and women. So I always say, when it's a really tough cut-off, you're cutting off a lot of women because it's already hard, and you're trying me to run the same pace as a man. So it's really tough to get the checkpoints right. So that, for example, for me, that takes out a lot of races for me. 'Cause one, I'm not fast, and two,
just a confidence thing. I'm
like, I'm not going to make it.
There's no point in starting it because you think that you might not make it anyway.
Exactly. So, and then obviously, like me, there's other people that want to maybe start running, but if you don't have the confidence, at least just make them a little bit flexible in that sense, or just friendly, And then there was another initiatives like having, in the pictures, more female running or doing it.
It's funny because even like what you said a couple of minutes ago about actual like the ultra endurance events that are a couple of 100 miles long and the females are winning overall. Mm-hmm. I've never heard that before. Like I've never seen that publicised. I'm not a massive running fan, but I would never have known that was the case.
Yeah, a lot actually of races.
Obviously highlighted.
Yeah, exactly. Just maybe to put more out there, more of those stories out there.
Make females think.
Exactly.
Wow, I never knew that actually we can be faster over a longer distance.
Exactly. And then they're doing other initiatives like putting loos or toilets or whatever. But I was like, no, let's just go. Yeah, that's a bit too much. That's fine. We'll go to the woods.
No, exactly. No, at the end of the day, like you want it to be, if you're racing in the desert or in the jungle or in the mountains, you don't want a row of portaloos every
exactly. Well, yeah.
No, definitely. So to go back to Jordan, and how did you find that? So that was your most recent and first 100 miler race in Jordan?
That was 220k.
Sorry, 220.
220k. It was good. I felt like I said, it was my first stage race. Funny enough, 2 weeks before, I did my first 100 miler.
Right, that's what I'm getting mixed up.
There was not in a plan.
Just decided it one day.
So at the beginning of the year, I wanted to do, that has been my dream race, or my dream distance, not race, my dream distance. I think for any ultra runner, 100 miles, a big stepstone. And since I started running 7 years ago, and that distance showed up like 5 years ago. And so it's always been in my mind. I've tried 3 times every year almost. I've been pursuing the distance and been DNFing, so didn't finish. So
is there a cut-off for those races, or are you meaning racing 100 miles in your own time?
No, in a race format. But there was a series of the first one was the West Highland Way, which it was starting raining, and when I got to the Highlands, I just couldn't bear, like I was just like hypothermia, and I was my first race also as well here in the UK, so not the proper gear. That was a bit stupid, but okay. So that was that, and then the next year, or a couple of following years, I tried again, and it was super hot. Seriously.
And that affected you?
The same year. Yeah, and I couldn't do it anymore, and then the next time was a time race. I had 24 hours and I couldn't finish the 100 and the 24. That one's a loop one, so it's not. So I was like, maybe if I take off the navigation part and I just do a loop, maybe I could. But didn't make it either. So it's like a trial and error. And the last one was, that was the one I planned to at the beginning of the year, was the Jurassic Coast 100. And even my parents came here. It was down south. Yeah. It was beautiful. Yeah. I was ready. I've been training for 2 years for that one. I decided to like rest and like properly train. I did the GB 50 Grand Slam in the previous year to kind of like prepare me to the 100 mile. I was like, this is my race. died at kilometer 40. Like, it was so hot.
Really?
My head was spinning. I've never been so, it was a heat stroke, like absolutely horrendous. How can you have a heat stroke in the UK?
When you're from Mexico.
But I learned a lot. I learned a lot.
Each one, do you think?
Each one, I was just shaping my sword. I was like, okay, shaping my sword. That's how I take it. And I think the DNFs are quite scary for people. That's maybe another reason why people don't sign up in general, female, male, that they don't want to do the leap in an ultra on a big distance. DNF. But DNF, it doesn't mean that you're quitting. It just means that you're gonna have to give it another go another time.
You've still
and it's not. But I feel like it's like, they feel like it does hurt. Like, I'm not gonna lie. Of course it hurts. But you're like, okay, got it. It's a hard distance. Any ultra distance is a hard distance. So the 100 mile is obviously it's a big stone. So I was just keeping, making my sword like. So that one was at the beginning of the year. I couldn't make it. I was so mad because I trained so much and it just went in like so fast. Kilometer 40, heat stroke, and Tania died. So it was like, no, like this was my year that I wanted to do it. Anyway, I started looking at another one that I could, try to make up for that one. Exactly. And I found a White Horse, 100. It was a good cut-off time. It was not crazy in altitude. It was quite nice. It was a little bit self-navigated, but I said it's fine. I could deal with that. I was like, I think it's a good route. I think I can do it. And I signed up for that one. To be honest, I even didn't care about Jordan at that point. I was like, I was just like so narrow sighted by the 100 mile. I just wanted my first buckle, definitely. So that was.
And did you get it?
Yes.
Yeah, you got it.
I got it.
So I think that a lot of people would have not failed at the first hurdle, but you had 4 or 5 attempts.
Three, and then the fourth one.
But it just shows you, like, you picked up different points and you learned from each of them. They didn't go to plan, but you just kept on going. And that's where the resilience comes in. It's that mindset that if you're going to suffer, fine, everybody suffers. It's good to suffer. It's good to fail, if you want to even call it that. But as long as you can take the positives from that.
And you also understand that the pain is sort of like a journey, because maybe 7 years ago I wouldn't be able to do what I'm doing now. It's just you start growing that, like you're saying, resilience. You start building that callus, kind of like, okay, the first time my feet were killing me, and that's why also I had to stop the second time. It was maybe the heat, but also my feet were so sore, like I couldn't put in my step one more. But that pain threshold, it starts growing and growing and growing. So you start again shaping your sword a little bit more until
you're just building your body to be able to cope with that.
Exactly.
And I think that's where a lot of people, not just in ultra running, it could be any kind of physical event, but it could actually be any event, whether it's work related or whatever. They kind of get fixated on the end goal, the outcome, and that's what they kind of see and aim for, and that's why it can be a bit kind of demoralising. But if they can break it down into smaller incremental gains, but make the incremental gains important enough that they matter, like they're smaller goals. So you've worked your way up from 5Ks in Mexico to 10Ks to marathons to 40, 50Ks, 100 miles now. Well, whatever, 220 kilometres a mile, 160 miles or something like that, But if you had somebody that says to you a good few years ago, 4 or 5, 6 years ago, if you were going to run 100 miles in 24 hours or a multi-day in the desert, you would have been like, no chance.
Absolutely not. And when someone tells like, oh, what's your best advice? Like, I'm just starting or whatever. The best advice I give them is patience and love. And actually, if people is going to go for a race, if my friends, I see they're going to do for a race, I don't give them like, oh, wish good luck, or because there's really not luck. I just have patience and love in everything. So patience with, with like, oh, maybe I'm not ready yet for that. Go back and study what happened and kind of like start, chipping away slowly until you get to that, to the goal. But you need to maybe chip in. So you couldn't make it, just go back and just start,
keep trying again.
Exactly. So patience, same thing in a race. That's the first thing I tell them. If there's a big hill, and you're starting to get, oh my God, this is not the pacing. Well, in trail it doesn't really matter that much, like the pace and all that. There's no, but but just patience and love as well. I think also runners, not myself, but I see that happening a lot out there, that they get fixated, like you were saying, like in a time, or I need to do this time, but what about being just love yourself, love the work that you're doing, accept what you're doing and just trust in what you're doing, and just be nice to yourself. Like, speak to yourself kindly. I think it would be...
Don't give yourself too hard a time.
Yes, exactly. Work hard, yes, but also speak to yourself in a lovely way, because your mind is listening to you, is listening to what you're saying. So if you mistreat it, like how are you expecting your body to, give
that's
you back anything if you're telling them like, oh, you're like fucking stupid feet, you're always sore, and you're giving me all this hard time, or my stomach, because I do not suffer that, but a lot of runners have stomach issues, problem with the gut, like, oh my God, it's my stomach. And you know what? Just if you're relaxed, you speak to yourself with love. I know you're doing the best you can at the moment, but again, patience and love. It's so true that though,
because if you were struggling in a race and someone came up to you, a fellow runner or a coach or whoever it may be, and started giving you a hard time, it's not going to help.
No.
Whereas if they started speaking to you with love, like you put it, that will help. So why not take that same kind of scenario in the way that you speak to yourself as well? Like, if you give yourself a hard time, it's not going to help matters.
Exactly. And I think even when you start a race, or you pick up a race or a training or whatever, just go there with that mindset of patience and love. And I think everything makes it a bit more enjoyable as well, because you're less pressured, like, oh, you better do this time or you're gonna be you lazy, like I can see people getting so into, like, maybe because I see a little bit more of road runners are a little bit more into the timings and but what about enjoyment? And what about you doing this because unless you're like a paid athlete and that's your job, but that's like the 1%. If you're just doing it because you love it or you enjoy it, just talk to yourself with love, and everything, even if you're feeling more relaxed, I can bet your body is going to work with you in a much better way, and than slamming your body or talking to yourself or being harsh on yourself, and don't allowing yourself to grow at your own pace. I think that is so important as well. Same thing, I think media is an amazing outlet to motivate people, but also it could be used the opposite. People feel like very pressured. If you see myself, I will never post, for example, my times, or like, oh, I did 1 kilometer in 4 minutes. It doesn't matter. I'm just inviting you to go out and have fun, enjoy your body, enjoy what you're capable to do. And if it's a 10-minute mile, 11-minute mile, 20, it doesn't matter. Distance is the same distance. So you just have to enjoy being out there without that pressure. So I think when people it happened to me, that I can tell you happened to me when I started seeing friends that I was running with, posting their PBs or their, it's just so like, I'm never going to run that fast.
So it took your love away from it because you were comparing
very
yourself
pressured,
to people.
Very pressured.
Totally. What's the point in doing it
that's why probably I run until today by myself. I love just my own pace. I love listening to my body. Is the hour or the 2 hours that I'm with myself, with my mind, knowing myself so good. I think the training is not only physically but also mentally to be ready for that race, for example. So if you're always with noise in your head, or you're running with people, you're running with the noise of, oh, you're not hitting your time, or you have to be fast, you're not really listening to yourself. What is happening in your body? Is your foot hurting? Is that, oh, did you drink water? Did you put your nutrition? You're getting distracted all the time, and you're not with yourself. With that is going to help you even more during the race, because yourself when something starts feeling off, you'll be like, I felt like that day that I was running, and it's because I haven't drank my head electrolytes. I'm going to put that salt tablet.
So you get to know your
I can
body
recognize immediately.
Signs,
exactly.
Do you think in Scotland, I feel that Scottish people, I might be unfair in saying this, we're quite like a self-depreciating country where we kind of put ourselves down. that we kind of compare ourselves to other countries that are bigger, that are kind of historically better at sport, whereas maybe in some European countries people are kind of predominantly more confident in their own abilities, but I feel that in Scotland it's always a bit doom and gloom when it comes to fitness and performance when you compare it to athletes from around the world.
I think it comes from cultural standpoint, because when I go hiking, for example, or running in the trails, I see a lot of people hiking these trails or, you know, going for those walks that are not even Scottish.
Yeah.
There's few people, but there's always, funny enough, or French. Yeah. There's always French people. French, because they have it in their culture, I feel, you know, or Switzerland, or and Scotland has so many beautiful places. Like, for example, my husband, he's never been to half the places I've been. You know, I'm like, oh, I went to these. Where is that? Oh, and I show him pictures. Like, look at this mountain, look at this view. And he's like, where's that? I'm like, it was just 2 hours down the road. You know, like, and I feel it's just maybe comes from cultural. Like, I don't know if that comes from that, because you guys have beautiful parks, beautiful mountains, beautiful bends to go and climb and, you know, and explore. And I don't see a lot of youth also being brought into this.
The outdoors.
Yeah, just see them more into the bars and pubs, sadly.
That same culture.
But, you know, I think maybe that's in general the world. I'm not sure.
That's interesting.
Yeah, but I do see that very sadly, because you're like, oh, you have no idea how much potential you have, or, you know, you're just...
Yeah, definitely. It's such a beautiful country. So we'll go back to the 220 kilometre in Jordan. So did that go to plan? Did you maybe get lost at one point?
No, the one is the super, super well marked. So that one's fairly easy navigated. But because I did the 100 miler 2 weeks before, I got there like not 100% probably, but I find it, I don't want to sound cheeky, but it was easy. It was easier,
easier than what you thought.
Or maybe because I just did the 100 miler 2 weeks before. That was hard. That was the hardest thing I've ever done in my entire life. I broke so many times. Actually, when I finished, I think I couldn't stop crying for 3 days. I was like, I can't believe I just did that.
Really, just the emotion. Well, it's built up emotional
like
years,
it was 5 years.
Yeah, 5 years.
You know, shaping my sword, and I finally killed it. Like, I'm unbelievable. And so after that high, I went to Jordan, and it was nice. It was lovely to stay away from the cold weather and just go to the sun and soak in the sun and the heat. So,
do you think that did that not present a big enough a challenge for you? Do you think?
Not to me, because maybe my Mexican blood loves I'm like sun powered. Like, I love the sun. But I could see another like Scottish people or white people struggling with like, oh, you know, they got a little bit more sunburned, and they have to be taking care of the skin. That would be probably an added, you know, challenge for them. My skin's pretty, you know, Mexican skin, blood skin. I'm absolutely fine, and I love the heat. It was hot, but it was shortest distances.
Still a marathon a day, and then
exactly.
1 day with
it's less than a marathon a day, and then just one day. You know, and to be honest, a lot of power hiking. Right, that's what we call it, walking. Or just walking. Yeah, so it's a little walk. The cut-offs are quite nice, very, very, very white and widespread. So you could make it really, really fairly easy just walking it. So actually, that's one of the sort of adventures that I could invite anyone to try if you're interested in kind of like putting your feet into long distances. I think I met a lot of people in the race that they've never done a half, like the longest they've done was a half marathon, and they were going and challenging themselves to do that. It was absolutely like amazing. Obviously there were some other people that were, you know, they've done 20 over plus stage races, and they were like, you know, but these kind of races, they have much more friendly cut-off time, so you can test your body, see, you know, how you do, practice a little bit. It's a challenge, definitely. So yeah, that's that, and it's very controlled. You're not gonna get lost. You're not gonna, you know, you're not in the middle of a mountain by yourself. There's always bands next to you, like a lot, very, very well and safe. So yeah, that's very, very good sort of starting point if anyone's interested.
What happens when you lose focus? Because it must happen when you get days or weeks or maybe even longer than that where you just fall. I know you've said you've never been in love with running, but you fall out of love with running. And how do you remotivate yourself? Is that just purely down to the discipline that you have, or is it down to recognising the fact that you kind of, for your own kind of mental fitness, you know that you need to just get out there and do your running and your strength and conditioning as well? How do you cope when you just can't be arsed?
I don't think I think that deep.
Really? You just do it?
No, just do it. And that's why I always have a carrot in front of me, or try to have that carrot in front of me. And I do have a trainer myself. I have a coach. Right, I wouldn't be able to coach myself, like a doctor making, itself, surgery. I wouldn't be able to.
So do you need that accountability as well? Someone.
It's not accountability because I don't, but I do like to have, accountability, I guess. And just that plan, I learn from them as well a lot. And just, I feel like I don't, like what I was saying, I don't think that deep. It's just, I don't think I think that deep. Seriously, it's just what's in the, like I wake up, what's in the plan, 1 hour, okay, just go up, do it. Like I don't draw myself thinking too much. Like, do you wake up and say, oh, should I brush my teeth today or not? Like, it's just part of what you do, and like it's not, when I fell off the wagon is when I don't have that carrot in front. But also I've learned that sometimes it's good. Like last year, I think I was 1 or 2 months off the leash. I was like, I couldn't find what I wanted to do. And I was like, and I feel like that is also good to have sometimes, just to maybe not do nothing. But I did very few, just kind of rest your body. And it was just, kind of like reading and seeing what I wanted to do, what the plans were, but I wasn't training like properly, like structured or hard. But I still go out there, do something. But yeah, definitely feel like having a plan helps to get up, obviously, and because you have something to shoot for.
Yeah, you've got a schedule there.
Otherwise, it would be...
And if you don't do it, you're going to be disappointed with yourself. It's there in black and white that you were supposed to do that today and you've not done it.
Exactly.
What's your plans then? What's coming next year?
So I'm doing the 5 deserts with Racing the Planet. Right. So it's called the Grand Slam. So that includes 4 deserts, and I'm doing the Grand Slam Plus. So that's... 5 deserts now, or 5 races, 5 staged races, same format, 250k this time. And these ones are self-supported. So I do have to carry all the equipment that I'm going to need for those 5 days through the deserts.
That's a game changer then.
That is going to be, but again, like I was like, okay, let's add a tiny bit more on top. Let's see, you were able to solve this. Let's see if you can solve now the same, but adding a little bit more of distance and carrying all the stuff in your back, which I think is like 10 kilos.
But times 5.
And times 5.
That's a big, you can add that on as well. So is that within the 1 year?
1 year, yeah, you have 1 year.
Like you say, every 10 weeks you're...
But you do have you have a month to recover. So I think that's not fairly easy, but I think I will be fine. Because I was quite recovered after Jordan.
Where are they held? Is it different countries or?
Yes, so the first one is in Namibia, so that's Africa. Very excited for that one. Then we go off to Gobi Desert in China. And then we go to, what's the other one? Gobi Desert, Chile, Atacama Desert. And then we go to Antarctica.
That'll be amazing.
In November. So I'm very excited for that one as well. All of them, I'm so excited. And the last one, which is the Plus, is like a surprise one. So we don't know yet which one or what terrain and what's going to be. So we're just waiting for that Plus.
And do you know other runners that are going to be there?
No, I don't know.
You don't, so you've not met like...
To be honest, even in the race, everything I do, I'm like all alone all the time.
Really?
I just go
and turn up and see. It's funny because I was speaking to one of my friends, Mark Riley. He's completed the marathon.
I've seen that.
So So he met his tent mates over there and a couple of other guys, and they're now for next year going to do the jungle marathon. They're doing it as a group of 3 or 4 of them, so they all kind of have a friendly face and they all know someone. But you're just turning up.
Turning up and see. The plan is, because I think the next big carrot I want to achieve is 200 miles. So 200 and 240, I think it's Cocodona 250 in the States.
Right,
I've seen the route. It's absolutely amazing. But I was like, oh, Tania, that is...
How does that work then? Are you allowed to sleep during that?
You do sleep, like power naps, and if you're doing you have to plan your sleeps. And
what's the
I don't know. It's like 100.
So?
No, it's 100 and something hours. So I think you have 5 days to finish it. Yeah. But it's 250 miles, so it's 300 and plus kilometers through really rough terrain, and it's pretty much like a whole week adventure. But in this time it's in one go, so the clock doesn't stop. Not like in the stage races.
So you can sleep as long as you want, but you need to make up for
exactly.
it.
So not like in the stage races that you have one day, clock stops, next day, clock stops. So that's the big picture. I thought I want to do that, but I think I need a different sword for that one. So I need to chip in a different one. So I want to use this 5 Grand Slam Plus to kind of like get my hiking powers, and because there's a lot of hiking in that 250, to be honest, there's not much running. Well, there's bits, but you're going to be walking or hiking for 5 days.
You're always walking.
You always do, but that one in particular much more, and just get those feet, used to walking for 5 days straight. So I thought, I'm not going to just train for the sake of it, for that, just in the hills of Scotland. So I've seen these stage races, and I got inspired and I was like, well, if I tackle that, I'm sure I could be ready to do the Cocodona 250, which that would be amazing. That would be your biggest
achievement. What's your biggest achievement so far then?
I think my 100 miler.
100 miler. Just because it was something that you just wanted for so long.
Yeah, I think it's because I was dreaming about it for 5 years, like literally in my head for 5 years. And even though it broke my heart 2 or 3 times, because obviously I DNF'd a couple of times, just getting back to it and just being able to like look at the face and say, I'll kill you. Are you now
finding that, I'm sure you are, certainly for males and females, that part of you must want to inspire and become a role model for people out there in Scotland as well, as far as ultra marathons, ultra endurance events go, especially for females, because it is a rarity, and you're doing a lot of work to promote female racing and stuff. How important is it for you that you get the message out there?
That's exactly it. I want more females to run with me, and I feel like stop being scared, I think, because I see a lot of people, like, obviously with the first thing they say when they see you, like, oh my God, I would never be able to do that. Oh my God, that's amazing. I'm like, I don't have superpowers. Like, I'm not, anyone can do it. Seriously, just anyone, if you put the time, the patience and the love, seriously, anything is possible. So for men and more females, because I feel like, again, we're a little bit undertaken in there, outnumbered out there. Like, just go for it. I don't know what is it that maybe keeps them, away from this, but we're so well equipped. We do so many challenges in life, even like we're so mentally equipped. We run the house. We're now doing, leading big corporations. Just see women taking like literally the world now. They're growing up so much, but they still like, why you don't want to why you don't want to try that. So maybe races need to kneel down a tiny bit to kind of meet us in the middle as well. I think races need to also be a little bit more flexible with a couple of things. Like I said, there's a couple of organizations doing that already, but try to promote it, try to be supportive with the sport, with female athletes in particular, but if we don't go and show up, you know, that would be difficult as well. So we do need, if we ask, we should then go and actually try it. And I think also we're scared of DNFing, you know, or like not being able to finish.
To be honest, it doesn't really matter.
I think people are so scared of failing, which and maybe at the beginning I was as well, but once you start saying like, oh, that is fun actually, like I don't sign up for any race that I don't know I'm gonna finish. So if I wanted to know if I'm gonna finish, I will sign up for a bunch of 10Ks. Like,
of course
I'm gonna finish.
There's no point in, if you know that you're going to finish something, you're not challenging yourself hard enough.
So I always sign up. I put my money where I don't know if I'm going to finish. Like if I see like, oh, there's a big risk, I've never done this, or oh, the times or whatever, that's where I'm going to put my money, because that's the fun. Yeah, and then when I DNF, it's like, Tania, congratulations, like that's what you were looking for, and you've got it. So there's actually no shame or not feeling bad.
You push yourself to beyond what you were actually capable with for whatever reason at that time, but you're just going to try again.
Yeah, exactly. And there's nothing wrong with that, and no feeling ashamed of that. So I feel like there's still a lot of fear of failing in everything, I think, in life, in sport, because I see also a lot of people and like I said, I'm an entrepreneur as well, so I open a lot of businesses. Maybe it goes well, maybe if not, but you know, that's so is life. So you need to just try, and there's nothing wrong with failing at all.
So in the last 5 or 6 years since you've came to Scotland, and you obviously became a runner, well, I don't know if I'm allowed to call you a runner, but taking up running,
quasi runner,
taking up running and became pretty good at it, pretty successful in it. What has it taught you about yourself? What have you learned about yourself in the last few years? Because it's a total change of lifestyle in so many ways for you coming here. Obviously, the other side of the world, different climates, different culture, taking up a sport that you actually don't like too much and never really done back home in Mexico. Yeah. What have you learned about yourself?
I think I learned about myself to be patient. I'm not a patience person naturally, so definitely that kind of, you know, teaches you the hard way to be patient with a lot of things, to yourself, with your journey, with the stage that you are in. So definitely patient. To be to adapt. I'm a highly adaptable person anyway, but that kind of like tops it up. Like, I know I lived in different places, like I know how to adapt, how to, you know, live. Like I'm not fussed about a lot of things, but definitely being uncomfortable for a long time and just kind of like adapting to that uncomfortableness and even liking it at some point. That definitely, I've learned that as well. I learned to don't overthink too much. Like I was saying, like, oh, should I do this?
Don't think, just do.
Just don't think. It's, you know, and it's, like I said, I have a lot of things in businesses outside of running and outside of my coaching and outside of that part of my life that's where I like to use my mind for important things, not, oh, should I train today? Why should I train today? No, train. Oh, I don't know. Like, it's just, I don't have time to be thinking.
Just go and get it done.
Exactly. Same thing with my nutrition. I have my plan. I you know, I'm not, you know, thinking, what should I have for breakfast? I should have breakfast. How much calories is this? No, like, the plan is there. Just, you know, like put my time and effort and my brain cells to work, making decisions that I really need to make decisions in, not those kind of things. So definitely don't overthink that. So life is already too difficult, and, you know, to make it even exactly. It's fairly easy, you know, you just have to do it, get on, and that's it. So I think I've learned that through the years, to just be patient mostly, and that, like I was saying, just be love yourself a little bit more, you know. I think that has been one of my greatest things that I've grown, because at the beginning, when even in my first DNF of the 100-miler, I was so tough with myself. I think I was even like a little bit depressed for a couple of months after that, because it was my first, you know, really punch in the gut, and I didn't know how to talk to myself, and I was so harsh on myself. And then after, you know, it was nice to learn how my brain talked to myself, like me talk to myself to get myself out of of that, you know, like, oh. And then I learned that, now let's talk to ourselves like that from now on, Tania, because I like that. I think that worked really nice. Exactly.
Yeah, if you respond, of course you want to get the best out of your own ability.
Exactly.
Is there anything that you want that we've not covered in the podcast? Is there any message that you want to get out as regard to you as a person, or the things that you're promoting?
No, I think that's it. Pretty nice chat. Just get out there, try yourself, test yourself.
Definitely. So obviously the listeners, I'm sure, male and female, they'll both be inspired by listening in and what you've achieved in your mindset and what you hope to achieve in the future. Where can people find out more about you or connect or ask questions? What's the best place?
Yes, of course. So in my Instagram, where you probably can put the link there, just add me on there, or my website, Strong Run Coaching. That can be also, it's in the link of my website, and then that's for my coaching as well. We have coaching options there, and if you have any question in general, I just want to bring people to the sport. I just really enjoy sharing what I've learned, not only in the books, because I think it's coaching is a little bit science and experience mixed together. So I can read and learn as much as one, but if you haven't felt it, it's a little bit difficult to coach that or just relate to the athlete. So if you have any questions, and also gear, for example, or nutrition or things like that, obviously it's very personal, but also always you can have pinpointers. I never had any of that. And
it doesn't need to be about running in general. It can be about strength, conditioning, general fitness and health.
Yes, of course. I never had any guidance. All I learned was by, trial and error. And if I can save anyone, the trial and error time, you're like, hey, this is what you have to do. I think it worked better, just don't waste your time doing this. Definitely, I'm always there to support.
Perfect. Tania, thanks very much for joining us today.
Thank you so much for inviting me.